In modern meditation culture, the terms Piti and Sukha have gained a lot of popularity, and among certain teachers, they have become cornerstones of the practice. And pretty much everything evolves around those two words, as people like to feel good and like to feel joyful and peaceful. In a sense, people started measuring their progress in meditation by the amount of Piti and Sukha, whatever they mean by that, they experience. While that in itself is a horrible measure of progress, it is not even clear what Piti actually is to them. You can ask 10 different teachers and you get 10 different opinions. What matters to the practitioner is usually just that it feels good. As that is more or less the opposite of the Dhamma, we want to analyze Piti and Sukha in depth today. Depending on your background, you might know that few terms are as mystified and with multiple meanings as the word Piti and Sukha, especially when you have been longer here on the channel. In modern meditation and especially jhana culture, these are used a lot to reference back to the suttas and oftentimes to justify their meditation methods. People are usually not blindly following a teacher, they do demand some justification why they should believe them. And that justification usually comes in sutta references and their own interpretation of them, of course, sometimes in isolation, by just picking a single sutta that seems to match what they want to say. Yet more often than not, those suttas are used in the wrong context, let's put it like that, and it does not match with all the other suttas. I will not use any names here and just describe practices to avoid unnecessary drama. By the way, if you have questions that you pose in the comments or on the Dhamma Hub Discord, please always leave out the person you associate that question with, so I can answer more freely, or other people like Saif can answer more freely. Anyway, let us have maybe a few examples of what people usually associate with Piti and Sukha, just to give you an idea, because not all of us have the same background knowledge. Some schools of meditation describe Piti as a warm feeling in your forearms or around your eyes, sometimes tingly, a sensation of joy that you should focus on in your meditation. And they often suggest making that joy the object of your meditation. Yet other schools describe Piti as a tingly sensation that could occur basically anywhere in the body. They even describe cases where the Piti can get stuck somewhere and you always feel energized and cannot even sleep anymore. It is often characterized by a pleasurable feeling, oftentimes tingly, warm, and pretty much always a bodily sensation, even though the suttas clearly say that Piti is a mental feeling, pretty much a mental thing. While I cannot say with any certainty where those views on the word Piti originated from, I know that many modern schools use the Visuddhimagga, or the other book, Vimuttimagga, to make sense of the practice. There, several different types of Piti are mentioned, ranging from minor Piti to suffusing Piti. It ranges from an initial experience of joy that arises as a result of calming the mind and focusing attention. It is described as supple and delicate, and it ranges to the most intense and pervasive form of joy, where the feeling of rapture suffuses the entire body and mind. It is described as a blissful ecstasy that fills the practitioner with a sense of profound well-being like a mountain stream hitting you full force. This is one of the descriptions that I found in the Visuddhimagga as an example. So what do you really know about Piti and Sukha from an etymological standpoint as an example? Even though etymology, can't pronounce it, is obviously not a perfect science. It still can give us some hints. Well, first of all, the suttas are pretty clear on the fact that Piti is a mental thing and not a bodily sensation. It can be accompanied by bodily stuff, but it is not the bodily sensation. But as there is always a body, there must always be some bodily sensations. The suttas usually mention Piti as a part of a sequence of 5 steps towards full samadhi, starting with relief. Then from that relief, joy is born, Piti. From the joy, there is calm, or passaddhi, and then ease, sukha, and lastly, concentration, or samadhi. And those 5 things happen in that order and directly follow from each other quite naturally. From that, we can pretty much see that Piti is not any kind of joy. It is precisely a relief-born joy. This is what Piti is. Wherever you look at in the actual suttas, I do not think I have ever encountered such a description as those of modern traditions. They were always kind of brief and always revolve around the very same thing, namely relief and ease as main characteristics. It is never about orgasmic pleasures or anything. It is simply about feeling of lightness, being uplifted, being at ease. It is about peace and freedom. It's about liberation. Or in short, It is not about pleasure. Pleasure is merely a byproduct. In fact, if you look even at the stock phrases, there's always also pleasure and not a central thing, so to speak. It is a very natural thing for relief-born joy to arise that later transforms into ease when you feel safe and you cannot give people a recipe to do Piti or Sukha. It has to be the result of relief, at least if you want to do it right. If you want to experience Piti and Sukha as factors that factually lead you towards Nibbana, then you must feel safe. You don't have to feel joyful, you have to feel safe, and from that feeling of safety, joy arises. But the joy will not stay forever. You cannot feel safe and burdenless, or you cannot reproduce the feeling of being cured from a sickness over and over again, unless you willingly go back to sickness, or willingly go back to prison, willingly go back to a war zone or something like that. And nobody would do that. So what that relief transforms into, quite naturally, and over not a long time, is a feeling of healthiness. Anyway, the best, let us call it experiential simile, is probably that of the freedom from the 5 hindrances from the suttas. Yet as I have recited that simile quite often, let us maybe have a look at one of the scorched traveler. And it goes as follows. Scorched by the sun, a lost traveler, wandering through a desert area, is very exhausted, trembling, thirsty. He seeks refreshment, a cool drink, a cooling bath in a pleasant, shady spot. However, not knowing which direction he should go to, he takes a path going straight toward a charcoal pit, full of glowing embers, deeper than a man's height, and without apparent flame or smoke, and falls into it. Stuck in it, full of terror, he experiences extremely painful burning and piercing feelings. Or he takes a path going straight towards a tree, growing in good soil, having a broad canopy of lush green foliage, and with deep shade. Sitting or lying under the tree, he experiences some well-being. Glad to have escaped from the sun and heat, he enjoys the shade. Or, having been told by an experienced traveler that this is the right path, he takes a path going straight towards a lotus pond, with clean, agreeable, refreshing and clear water. The pond has smooth banks, and is near a dense, shady forest. Delighted, the exhausted traveler plunges into the water, bathing and drinking his fill, and when all the distress and fever of exhaustion is stilled, he sits or lies down in the forest grove, desireless, happy, feeling only bliss. And this simile is taken out of context quite often. The people often suggest that you take any kind of joy and drink to your fullest. And when you are satisfied, you are desireless. And this is exactly the principle of samsara, which makes it so difficult to argue against those people. I mean, you experience some calm, and you experience some desirelessness after you have gotten what you wanted. So you desire that joy. But the Dhamma is exactly about desirelessness. You experience joy because you no longer need anything, but the joy will fade over time. This is what the jhanas tell us too. They become more and more neutral over time. And as you will encounter over and over in the suttas, the practice is about relief from something oppressive. So what might be the immediate cause for relief-born joy to arise? Well, if I translate it like that, it should be pretty clear. It is relief. And that relief has a cause too, namely withdrawal or seclusion from that which is unsafe. You cannot have any kind of joy or any kind of relief, though. It has to be the right kind of relief, the relief of the path. There are thousands, if not infinitely many kinds of relief and joy available that are not it. This can make the practice so difficult because there are so many counterfeits, so many false friends. There are many things that seem like it to an inexperienced traveler, as the suttas would say. But essentially, Piti comes about through remembering progress, through remembering safety, or realizing or noticing safety, or through realizing freedom. I find it immensely important to point that out, that such feelings of safety cannot be repeated over and over in meditation. To experience freedom from danger, you need danger. And why on earth would you go back into danger when you have realized the way out of danger and are free now? Freedom from danger can only be revisited when you willingly go back to danger. Otherwise, it just matures into more neutral feelings of ease, lightness, and health, which is what sukha is, the opposite of dukkha. Literally, it is the opposite of dukkha. The problem is that whatever people experience in meditation might very well be better than everything they know before. As such, they suspect that it must be some great spiritual attainment, as they have no real point of reference except for the prior sensual engagement, which is an inferior kind of pleasure. As they have not found something better yet, They drop everything else they clung to before, which feels like a letting go. Yet it is not. It is a switching out. A drug addict also drops weed for heroin and later cocaine. And the Buddha mentioned that we automatically let go of gross pleasures for more sublime ones, but we are still bound by pleasure ultimately. It mimics the actual Dhamma quite well. This is why an escape from samsara is so hard. Every pointer, as mentioned before, is in the wrong direction. And with Sukha, there's not so much controversy going on, and we can keep it rather short here. It literally boils down to ease versus unease. Suffering versus no suffering anymore, for some time at least. Sukha is not some mythical joy or happiness or something fine and sublime or anything like that. It is simply the absence of pressure or burden. It is a feeling of health, lightness. You have thrown away that which is heavy and burdening you, and as such, you experience lightness and easiness and peace. The thing is, it is easy to map your ideals to one or even a few suttas, which is what many people or teachers or traditions do. But that does not make it the right interpretation. Try to get the gist from many suttas, and you might be on the right path. You might have something or might be onto something that is actually freeing or liberating. But in the end, only your own liberation is the benchmark that you should look out for. When suffering no longer arises, then you have been doing it right. And how do we get the initial relief that gets the ball rolling? Well, as with any other addiction, we have to be apart from those behaviors that oppress us. We have to stop taking our drug, which in the case of Buddhism or Dhamma practice is sensuality. Once we have been sufficiently secluded from that sensuality, we will realize, and we have been doing it right and actually seeing it as dangerous or trying to see it as dangerous, in what kind of filth we have been rolling ourselves and experience relief and freedom from that. This is what insight actually is. Then you have an insight into the suffering-inducing nature of sensuality, into the suffering nature of craving. That craving actually produces suffering. And on realizing this, there's relief to be free from that. Joy springs up. And spending enough time in that joy, you experience ease, calm, and all the other things that we always mention. You start small and move forward gradually. You take your everyday addictions and uproot them on the level of views where they cannot grow back anymore. This is what true renunciation is. You throw them away for good. We do not blindly restrain. We go to the root view that leads us back to our addictions over and over, so that the addiction cannot come back. And for every view we drop, there is a bit of relief. The more we drop, the more relief. And this can set a positive feedback loop in motion. The full Piti and Sukha can only be realized when you have basically dropped everything. But until then, you build up confidence and faith through repetition and take all the small rewards on the way. But anyway, this should be enough for today. Let us now come to the most important points. First, feelings are not sensations. Feelings can just be good, bad, and neutral. Sensations can be all over the body and also have a quality of good, bad, and neutral present. We call many things Piti or Sukha, but only one thing can be right, and only one kind of Piti will lead to the maturing of the 5 steps towards Samadhi. And this is what we are aiming for. We want the Piti and the Sukha of the path. We don't want any Piti and Sukha. Piti and Sukha can, well, they won't be right, but you can still call them Piti and Sukha, can lead you very much away from liberation, even if they feel sublime. I mean, drugs also feel sublime, and you kind of know that they are bad for you. But for many other things that seem so innocent, that connection is unclear for many people. And Piti is just relief-born joy. And this is something you should keep in mind. It is not any joy. It has to be relief-born. And anything that is born from relief relies on that relief and cannot really exist without that relief. But relief itself will fade out. It will fizzle out after some time. And Sukha just means ease or the absence of something oppressive. Healthiness. Peace. And you experience relief and joy when you realize or remember or recollect your freedom. Not because you do a little meditation dance or something like that. You literally remember the way out of suffering. You remember how free you are. And on remembering or recollecting that is joy. This is sometimes enough of a practice for a Sotapanna to actually carry him towards Nibbana. You remember the way out. But anyway, I hope you have understood the differences between Piti and Sukha, between the suttas and modern traditions better. If you have any additional questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below, but please leave out any teachers. I gladly answer everything that is not a direct character attack or anything like that. But apart from that, Feel free to like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube things. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day and goodbye.